I'm going to talk only about certain sectors, uh, principally on the post-COVID kind of situation, how Kerala can benefit from particular changes that may take place. And obviously this means what arises out of the stimulus package. Uh, are we ready for revival and development? Are we uh, in a position to go forward? Do we see any light at the end of the tunnel? And I completely agree with him that I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel now. Just like he is bearish about the future, I'm equally bearish. Now, coming to certain specific areas, I know that there are other panelists here who will talk about industry, who will talk about agriculture and food processing, who will talk about other areas. So I just thought I'll take some of the residual areas which come in the stimulus package and see whether Kerala has any advantage out of it. Starting with defense, there are 2 or 3 major things that have happened. As part of the stimulus package, FDI has been raised, foreign direct investment, from 49 to 74% in the automatic route. I'm not too sure it will work that easily, because even now, FDI is available at 100 the approval route. And not much interest has been shown either in the approval route or the automatic route. Probably the reason is that the procedure is rather long drawn. It takes about 8 to 10 years from inception to materialization. And the specifications keep getting changed all the time. And then again, what is intended is not very clear. 100% FDI is allowed in US, it is allowed in Israel. Their IPR is completely protected. Now the manufacturers can take away the dividends, but the IPR is completely protected and it remains within the country, but the conditions are still not known. Now, so far as Kerala is concerned, it may not benefit from foreign companies coming in directly, primarily because all these units will require huge areas. We don't have so much of land. So that may not be possible, but feeder units may be a possibility. We have already set up, I think, 1 or more defense parks in the past. They can perhaps be revitalized if there are foreign investors coming in. The second thing is that there will be a negative list of products to be bought only from Indian manufacturers. This again is not a new idea. This negative list has been brought out from year to year. Basically, they contain only the equivalent of nuts and bolts, nothing substantial. Of course, I believe General Rawat is now trying to expand the list. But even now, there is a long-term perspective of 50 technologies which are to be Indianized or indigenized. That has really not happened. Then you have the problem of DRDO, which also develops technology. You have giant public sector undertakings. Now, what Kerala can do here is establish contact with leading groups in the field. There is L&T, Adani, Tata Advanced Systems, Ambani, Mahindra, Bajaj, etc., and try to attract them into Kerala. The third thing they have said is ordnance factories to be corporatized. Now, this only makes it a public sector undertaking, and anyway, Kerala is not going to gain from that. On the space field, they're going to allow private sector into the satellite field. This is also nothing new. Already 3 companies are working with ISRO, but it is unlikely that ISRO will give away the key technologies. In atomic energy, they have said that irradiation technology, private sector can work with the Department of Atomic Energy. Irradiation is important for Kerala, but irradiation is already available in Kerala for pepper and other commodities. But maybe there is a possibility of contact with the Department of Atomic Energy. Going to the power sector, the first thing that they have said is 90,000 crore working capital loan will be given in 2 tranches to distribution companies. This will be a 10-year loan at 9.5 interest, 5% interest, to be guaranteed by state governments. But Kerala doesn't require this. We have been paying in time, and we have working capital limits from banks for short-term imbalances. So we do not propose to make use of this. I don't think it will be required. The other thing that they have said, and I'm very concerned about it, they have said that the FRBM limits, the borrowing limits of the state government, will be raised from 3% to 5%. 0.5% will be given unconditionally. 1% will be subject to conditions, which includes one nation, one ration card, ease of doing business, reform in the power sector, and raising revenues of urban local bodies. Now, I'm concerned because if they were to lay down conditions, I would have preferred that they said you spend 1% on health infrastructure. That would have been of immediate consequence for the whole country. But somehow the word health does not seem to appear at all in this, the conditionalities that they have laid down. Now, so far as the power reform is concerned, there are three factors they have mentioned. First, AT&C losses to be curbed. Here, Kerala is at an advantage because we have already come down to 10%, which is much lower than the 15% limit that the government of India has been speaking of. The second point is that the gap between average cost of supply and average revenue realization should be reduced. Now here again, no specific details are given, but this is already pretty low in Kerala. It is, there is some gap between the two, primarily because government has to pay KSEB something like 1,800 crore, which is mainly from the Kerala Water Authority. The third condition regarding power is that subsidies will be given only through direct benefit transfer. Now, presently we are giving subsidies to 280,000 farmers. Here what they do is the bills are aggregated and sent to Krishi Bhavans, which pay the Kerala State Electricity Board. Roughly 12 crore per month is the burden. But again, they have run into arrears of 90 crore. The government has run into arrears of 90 crore. Here again, this is nothing new in these reforms because they have been under discussion in the tariff policy, and the electricity amendment bill is shortly to come before Parliament. The PM has held 2 meetings. The group of ministers has approved. And I think overall the structure of the reform is good. No cross subsidization, the direct benefit transfer of subsidies. So the bills will go from the electricity board. Subsidies, if any, will have to be given through direct benefit transfer. And the selection of the SERC, the Electricity Regulatory Commission chairman and members, will be taken over by a committee headed by a Supreme Court judge. All the committees, including the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, all of them now will be taken away from the political executive and given to this kind of committee. So overall, I think Kerala doesn't have to fear because the condition is 0.5% is unconditional, 1% subject to this condition, all these 4 conditions that I mentioned earlier, and the remaining 0.5% will be given if 3 of the 4 are performed. Now here I don't see any difficulty for Kerala on one nation, one ration card, power reform, and raising revenues of urban local bodies, because we have been in this local decentralization thing for a very long time. So these 3 we can easily do. Ease of doing business, I really cannot say because I don't know the conditions which the government of India has laid down. Coming to migration, I think one of the important things that took place in this COVID crisis was that many migrant laborers who were till now invisible, they became visible, very, very visible. And suddenly people realized that these people are there. And because I don't think it was known even to government, otherwise we wouldn't have had a lockdown with just 4 hours notice. So they have been given something, rations for 2 months, promise of one nation, one ration card. They were sent by railway. About who paid for it and whether it was free, that is another question. Now the point is that they have gone destitute. They have no money, no employment. The MGNREGA has not been sufficiently enlarged. So there is a real problem there, and how it is going to be handled in the future is extremely important. Of course, I think it is time we thought of looking at the Interstate Migrant Workmen Regulation of Employment and Conditions of Service Act 1979. Now, this is a very tight act. It will probably have to be dusted up and polished because we don't want to introduce Inspector Raj in this area. So without introducing Inspector Raj, how can we give a certain measure of protection to migrant workers? This will have to be looked at, but I think here again, Kerala cannot do it alone. It will have to be done on an all India basis. Then we have the problem of returning Pravasis who are again, because the Gulf countries, the oil prices have fallen, whether, there are a large number of them coming back from there. Now, what I really think of is that if we'll have to help them prepare bankable schemes. Fortunately, the banks are now flush with money and they're looking for areas to lend. If we can persuade the government of India to extend their guarantee scheme, which is now available to the MSMEs for working capital loans, if this can be extended also to startups for returning Pravasis, plus other benefits available for startups, I think some progress can be made. This will require a lot of hard work by the state government and organizations like the industry associations, TIE, civil society will have to participate. Generally, I agree with Mr. Nainan. I don't think that there is today enough to generate revival. You see, merely giving loans will not lead to revival of the economy, because why should I, if I'm a small, a medium industry or a small industry, take a loan if I cannot sell my product? Stimulating demand is an extremely important area on which we are yet to pay attention. Actually, the government of India gave a lot of benefits on the supply side, including a corporate rate tax cut last year. But on the demand side, much more work needs to be done. The second thing is they have to show greater confidence in states. If you are increasing the borrowing limits from 3% to 5%, why not leave it to the states? Why not? Why are you laying down conditions at this time? Particularly when the economy has to grow, you can talk to the states, you can discuss with them, you can formulate projects, but why are you not showing enough confidence? Then I mentioned about healthcare. There's nothing really mentioned about healthcare and no conditionality for expanding healthcare in the raising of the FRBM limits for states. Finally, the point which I'm talking about, the whole concept of development has to be reconsidered. We find that Kerala has done a lot better than many other states in combating COVID. This is primarily because we have been investing for the last many years, many decades on health, on education. We in the CDS done a study as by the planning board on what really is economic development. And this study has been given to the planning board, and it has also come out in the form of a book. It is done by our former director, Mr. Amit Ray, Dr. Manmohan Agarwal, and Ms. Dr. Parameswaran of the CDS. Basically, the title of the book is What is Economic Development? and they have done an analysis. But we need to look at development not just in terms of GDP or IIP or FDI numbers. We need to look at development holistically, and that too on an all India basis. Thank you. That's all I had to say.